Hardline, that voice or whatever.
What voice is that?
I don't know, but you're the one who like you used to do that all the time. Like, it'd be like,
Me?
yeah, it'd be like, oh, this person brought us the soggy chips, and you'd be like, soggy chips. Like, I don't know. I mean, I'm pretty sure that was you.
That doesn't sound like me.
Although, I've been, I don't know if realizing is the right word, but like I've been thinking. I'm not sure if I remember a lot of the 2000s. Like I remember stuff like in the same way that like if you were to look at a bookshelf full of like 200 books, you'd be like, oh yeah, I remember I read that. Like that happened, and I remember generally this was going on here, but then you like get to the book, and if someone were to ask you like, what happened in this book in like chapter 12, you'd be like, I'm not even sure there's 12 chapters in that book. I couldn't tell you.
Oh man, this sounds like
remember the 90s more. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. Are you're more
Maybe
stuck in the 90s? Yeah.
Because didn't you read the book? Didn't you read Close to
I did. Now that's
I thought that's why you were already,
that's probably my recommendation.
Recommendation, even better.
Recommendation.
That's what I want.
Recommendation. But yeah, I've been trying to. I mean, I don't do this much, but I've been trying to every now and then. I think like to try to just reimagine the 2000s, and it's like. I don't know. I don't have I didn't even think of it in the way that you were saying, Brandon, but I feel like I have a lot more vivid memories of the 90s than the 2000s.
Yeah.
I think the reason is the 2000s it hasn't been long enough. Like, cause you don't have enough like nostalgia. Like you have some nostalgia and also like time of life. Like the 90s, just like for all of us,
I feel like
the 90s were more important.
I feel like this is a segue to the Sun articles.
Yeah, all right, that's good. That's a good way to start. All right, hey, Code 2 ad reads. We should get going because I gotta get. I'll have to have the 305 hard stop. So.
Oh, that sounded like a bus.
It did. I don't know. It did. I got to catch the 305. Something like that.
See, there you go. I mean, at the end of the podcast, you're always like, bye.
It's a trademark, though. I have so many different like, clips of it. I love it.
Bye. The supercut it would be fun to do one day.
The supercut of that would be awesome.
Let me just put this in the Twitter, and then that would be weird after a while. Bye 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 bye.
I have the back call too. Matt has this.
I kept that MP3. I mean,
that is like I don't know. I have that too.
If I can figure out how to get MP3s to my iPhone, I'd make that my ringtone or something.
I don't know. That's a good question. I don't know.
I found some like convoluted article, and I actually wrote an article like 15 years ago about how to do it. It was easier with iTunes because then you could just toss stuff into iTunes and sync it to your phone. And now with this music player,
iCloud has made it harder.
Yeah. So I'll figure it out at some point because I have all these ringtones, years and years of ringtones that I haven't synced to my new phone, and it's just. The iPhone, it's nice, but it's
you just switch to an iPhone.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not gonna switch back or anything, but it's just not the same.
Yeah,
it just lacks personality.
Yeah, it really has gone pretty bad since the Moto rocker. That's the problem.
Oh, I did like my rocker and my Palm Trio. Oh, sweet.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, I'm ready.
All right, man. Whenever you're ready.
Well, depending on if you follow a calendar year or a fiscal year, I think we are we're either 2/3 or a third of the way through Q1. Like I know that the fiscal year that's offset by a month that starts in February is very popular. Maybe if people know, they can write me in. My only theory, other than people wanting to just like fuck everything up, my only theory, which I don't know if I've validated, is that so that salespeople can have Christmas off, and sales and finance people, right? Because the people who have to work at the end of the quarter, primarily are the salespeople and the finance people, right? Because sales has got to make the sales, and then finance has to start closing the books, right? So, like, if you end your Q4, which for I'm sure many companies, I'm definitely retail, definitely software. I'm sure many companies that is. I don't know if I'm using this phrase properly, by order of magnitudes, the highest revenue quarter that many companies have, it's sort of like, well, in the words of, you ever see, what was it, Chip's favorite movie? Not favorite, but the All the Real Girls. And there's that outtake. There's that outtake with the guy asking his cousin why they never got together, and she's like, "I'm gonna go tell grandma." And then just like for salespeople, if they end their Christmas on the calendar year afterwards, wasn't his name Bustass? Bustass is like, Christmas is fucked. And so I feel like that's the situation that you're in unless you end it there. But anyways, I think that's the whole fiscal thing. So you're either a third. Oh.
Well, I was just gonna say, it sounds like the fiscal years are like the time zones of enterprise sales. It's like they're just fucked.
There you go. And so you're either a third or 2/3 of the way through the first quarter. Who is ringing the doorbell? And my question that I would like y'all to discuss is, so what should we be doing at this point in the year? How do we, I feel like we finally got to start doing the actual work, and how do we bootstrap our into that? How do we get into the habit of doing that?
Lots of questions there, Cote. We'll try to get to them all. So I think, Matt, maybe the first one to figure out is my understanding of why people change the physical calendar is, in theory, it is supposed to align with your industry. So if your industry has events and your customers typically buy or sell at different times, that is the reason people move around the physical year, right? Because that way you're sort of mimicking the industry. Now, having said all that, I do think the other thing that I've read about this whole thing is the fact that it's just human nature. If all your goals are due at a certain time, it's part of procrastination. It's just if you pick any date as the end goal, you'll just work harder to that end date. So that's just the idea of why sales at the end of the year, Q4 is always the biggest thing, because that's when the quotas end, and it doesn't matter if Q4 is in the middle of July or the middle of December. It's just, that's human nature. Do you agree, Matt? Yeah. Is this what you've observed?
Well, especially once you start to go international, right? Then you have to worry about all the weird vagaries of you're not going to sell anything in Europe in August, right? They're all taking off August. You're not going to sell anything in Australia in January, because that's summer and they've all gone to the beach. And Lunar New Year, shuts down large parts of Asia, Southeast Asia. But I don't know. I'm more of a purist. I say keep it on the calendar, and it'll sort itself out eventually. Because then you have to start worrying about well, if I'm tracking my industry, then you have government agencies that are well, we got to spend all of our money or we won't get our budget back next year. And what calendar are they following? Are you now following their calendar? And now your Fed sales aren't synced up with your European sales.
Well, I think it's a great example. I think that's for sure. I think if you are selling to any type of governmental agency, at least here in the US, you probably want to be synced up. I would assume large defense contractors or government providers are always trying to sync up to the United States government's calendar. I don't know if it's good or bad. Now, I will say though, just for me, it's it feels like February. February is really when you want, I think that should be the end of the year, because everyone went on vacation, came back, and February is just I feel like February is kind of a boring month. It's kind of, one, it's kind of short, and two, it's okay, we had our big Christmas holiday, everyone's back. It's let's just get some stuff done, right? Rather than it be the kickoff for next year.
Yeah,
close it out. Let's just close out the last year. Even better, I think, is if you're just going to shift the whole quarter, just make it March 1, right? Or sorry, I guess that would be April 1, right? Just really Q1 calendar year really should be Q4 of last year, because it's okay, the year's really ending, people. We need to get it done. So that's what I like. That's why I like the Q4.
Man, it's just too complicated though, because then and then all your people are well, my taxes are due April 15th, and and the kids get out of school in the middle of April for spring break, and it's it never stops. Calendars are just a mess. I say we get rid of them.
All right, we're gonna end on that. Calendars are just a mess. I think that was a perfect ending. Let me write this down. 9 minutes.
Yeah. We're just kind of yada yada. No Cote.
What did I miss?
Calendars are a big mess. Matt and I fixed the financial calendar thing. So we're in the break here. We're in the break. So what are we this week? Strong DM. Want everyone to go see our friends at Strong DM. And that worked out well. So Matt, I could hear your dog a little bit. I don't know.
Yeah,
it's not that bad, but
dog. I've got people coming in and out of the room to glare at me. One of my kids has stayed home. He's probably got COVID.
Oh, it's a bummer.
Yeah.
Going around Australia, my boss in Australia, he's got COVID. Just going around the country there.
They got the PM. Yeah.
That's the highlight. It's the highlight. Down here, up here, it's like we're done, man. That's it.
Oh, we're done here. We just
like,
stopped caring, and now it's getting everybody.
But the numbers are way down here too. Like before, we just didn't care, and the numbers were high. Now the numbers are way down. So it's like, okay, all right, now things are going well. So all right, Cote. How the groceries? Everything good? Did they bring you what you needed?
Yeah, I'll put them up after this.
It's quite late, isn't it? Is it not like 9?
Yeah, it's 9:12. I don't know. You got to get your shit.
No, that makes sense. I'm glad that I'm just surprised. So,
yeah.
All right, we're ready. We can do it whenever.
Late night grocery delivery.
Yeah, like remember when McDonald's had that moon-faced guy because they were like staying
Mac
up
the
late
Knife.
night? Yeah, was it Mac? Huh.
Yeah. Huh. McDonald's, and he'd sing Mac the Knife. Come on, this is like. I can't remember important stuff, but I can tell you commercials from the 2000s that you don't even remember.
No. I remember. I just don't remember his name.
Well, he was singing the Mac the Knife song, and he was a big moon, and I don't know, and he was McDonald's. And
man, I wonder if he is in the character of like McDonald's figures. Like usually,
the best thing about like streaming and ad blocking is I don't think I've seen any commercials for like 10 years, and all our. But except for those of our wonderful sponsors.
That's right.
and Coca-Cola. I still apologize.
That's
about
true,
the
man. You like your Coca-Cola, if nothing else. All right, Cote, let's do it.
All right. Well, okay.
One more. Yeah, one more.
Tell me again when you need to stop, Brandon.
About 5 minutes after the hour.
Okay, so 10:05 my time. Okay, good. All right. Well, I thought there was a great article on everyone's favorite topic. Especially for this time of year when you're setting your OKRs, your MBOs, your KPIs,
KPMGs.
Yeah, your KPMGs. Whatever those numbers are, and that is I forget the person's name. I barely remember my own name, and it was all about. It was like, hey everyone, let's get some real talk here. We really need to figure out metrics for DevOps. For developer relations. We got to figure out how to measure them, all that kind of stuff. And then he proceeded. I think it was a he. Then they proceeded.
Swix.
Yeah, to just like I think I'm still scrolling to really just go at it. And I love the style where people actually publish their headers as Markdown headers. It's a little like. Is that now? I know, Matt Ray, you have a geology degree. But
I do.
I feel like you would know if that is a semiotic use of typography right there. Is that some kind of like signaling going on by including the double hash signs? Now that's another. I'm going to go just slightly deep on this. This is. I feel I spent a lot of time thinking about this. Now in Markdown, there is no such thing as a title, right? That you use. There is only an H1. Now,
single hash. Yeah.
You may recall that starting in 1995, I would handwrite things in HTML. So I've thought a lot about H1 to, is it 7 or 8? I haven't thought that much. I never wrote something long enough that I needed to go that deep. And so like, I don't know, man. I used to be the kind of person who would be like, okay, if you're in Markdown, you use an H1 as the title of the piece. And then you immediately got to go to H2s because it's not the title of the piece. But in recent years, I'm realizing I've converted over to like, no, fuck that. Like, it's not my problem that Markdown doesn't have like a title. And like, it doesn't make sense that like inside the context of the piece, like a header 1 is like a chapter title, is a heading of a section. And then, so forth and so on. So I don't know.
How much are you writing? I mean, are you writing your books in Markdown or what's going on here? Why are you caring so much?
I wish I was. No, I just think about it when I'm doing it.
Because I hit up the Markdown in my blog and it's like the whatever I'm getting from Google, Hugo or Jekyll or whatever it is, I'm using the GitHub pages and it's like it just slaps the title on there automatically. And then, like, I start with H1s.
I guess here's why
single pounds because it's Markdown.
Here's why it comes up is because I use Bear and that's in Markdown, right? And so whenever you start a bare note, it puts like an H1, a single hash thing in there. Anyways, here our friend goes with the H2s as the section headings at the top. So that's fun. Anyways, I think it's a great overview of various types of things you might track, and it also is very like let me just say, another thing I think about a lot. I think a lot of how we think about metrics nowadays in the software world is driven by a lot of people who have SaaSes, right? Who can actually collect the metrics, which is always an issue with sorts of things. However, there's also a lot of open source metric tracking, which I'm sure when you say that in an open source world, it just makes them need to like change their pants because they get all out of whack. But like you've got a lot of like thinking about what is it, the applying the pirate metrics to the open source stuff that what's her name like presents about a lot in a very nice way. But to summarize that, I don't know, tell me Brandon, if I'm kind of summarizing these metrics. A lot of what you're measuring is basically in these metrics it's funnel stuff. You're trying to somehow measure the journey of a person, a developer or whatever, through the funnel of becoming a customer basically, and kind of becoming part of your community, and figuring out how to kind of track the way that stuff is going, which seems fair. I think the only thing missing with some of these is and this is the problem with all developer relations metrics and kind of all metrics. Well, not all metrics, but definitely like a lot of marketing metrics is like, sounds awesome. How are we going to get those numbers?
Well, I think he does a good job. I think he actually kind of, gives you a little bit of a roadmap. And for everyone listening, we'll make this his chart here, the podcast art for this section. So you can kind of see, I think a couple things he does is one, he does break out DevRel into 3 categories, sort of like, are you a community builder, a content, or like kind of a product? And sort of, he kind of goes into what each one of those means. But, his North Star, I think, sometimes you hate when people just write a bunch of stuff and don't make recommendations, but, he comes right out and says like the North Star here is monthly active developers. So that's really what I think in this case he's advocating for. Yeah. That's what you measure. And then I thought he did a good job about saying, at least putting an opinion down, says, okay, if you're going to do that and you're focusing on content, his metrics are newsletter subscribers, YouTube subscribers, Twitter followers, workshops done, conference meetups, and then traffic plus SEO authority. So I think it's not a bad list. We talked about it a few weeks ago. I think maybe even in the after show or something. Like what's the right thing to be doing? Like what's the right content for the specific type of job? So I was a little surprised that it was newsletters, but like, I get it. Like if you can create a really compelling newsletter and you're getting a lot of subscribers, that's a pretty deep relationship. And that's something that would take a lot. And same thing with YouTube. I think, Cote, you've talked about this before too. It's just like, if you want to be where the people are, you're on YouTube. So maybe it's, in retrospect, it's sort of clear that at least for the content side, that's where you should be. And then Twitter, of course, kind of out there as well. But I think, what wasn't on here as much was just like the blog, right? The blog is usually the obligatory thing everyone's always talking about. But I thought it was interesting that he was really trying to promote subscribers or follow as really the metrics that's most important for a community. So I think that was interesting.
And the nice thing about newsletters is typically they're opt-in. As I get subscribed to newsletter after newsletter automatically. But you can track opens. Usually there's the pixel, the tracking pixel, and so you can see like what kind of penetration you get and how many people actually read your newsletter. Mm-hmm. Like I think I was on some newsletter that I filtered off to a folder, and MailChimp after a while just unsubscribed me because I wasn't open enough. And so like, nice. I'm sure that counted, they're tracking, MailChimp at least was counting that kind of stuff, but it is a good metric because, you get a feel for what content is working. And then, if you go back into your newsletter and, wrap all your links with, the right kind of, metadata or whatever, you can then get, click-throughs and stuff like that. But, it's, very, very, very tangible. Like next
now he did not write this, but I'm gonna say this, that I think the newsletter that you need to create though is, especially for companies, like you need to. I think it's mostly best if you attribute it to like a person or maybe just a couple people, so it really takes on a voice. So this is something that I think is always hard in companies, is that if you're going to invest in DevRel, part of that is investing in someone's brand. Maybe they bring a personal brand to the community or to their job, but at the same time, I do think these newsletters do a lot better if they aren't just, sort of the obligatory coming from the company and has the big company logo on it and stuff like that. But a newsletter like that, you feel like it's written by a specific person. And then it's like, even if behind the scenes, there's a lot of editing that's going on. And I'm not saying someone can't get some help, but it's something that coming from someone, it's like, those are the ones that I tend to read a lot more.
Yeah.
So I don't know, Cote, I know you've spent a lot of time writing. How do you do it?
Yeah. I mean, I think about once every year I try to like restart my newsletter, and then I'm just like, whatever. Like I give up on it. So on that topic, but I think what you're getting at there is, I was talking about with someone earlier today, which is, there's some calibration you have to have between marketing and developer relations when it comes to like how attached it is to a person or a personality. And it's vaguely uncomfortable to like talk about it if you are in developer relations, because you sound like, oh, la-di-da, look at me, I'm a fancy person. But like on the other hand, I'm running as I'm talking. Like I think all of the great sort of like, to broaden it, evangelist types are all like people and not entities, not like groups, right? So like, the memorable newsletters that you read come from a person, or like I think a lot of the memorable ideas that you have like come from a person. Like it feels like all of the sort of influential people who have driven like technology choices. I mean, I've kind of tautologed it by saying people, but the drivers have always been just like people doing the things. And so like maybe that's a very hard thing to kind of like get across to some people, because it seems like, like you're saying, like, we write a newsletter here, we write a newsletter there, who cares, right? Like, and also we can have the really cool like correct corporate font and,
that's right.
Like all of that design. But there is something like, back to the semiotics or whatever.
But I think if someone, I don't know, just
like you can sort of eyeball when something is from a person, and therefore you trust it more, versus when it's like very polished and finished, right? I mean, especially if you've got like a camera coming down on a glass stage and someone has their hands, steepled, and there's been like, it's 7 a.m. in the morning, and there's like that band in Las Vegas that like is neon under a black light, like that feels a little not like traditional developer.
Right. But I guess, the part I would go further, it's almost like Substack or something along those lines. Like, so if I was if you just said I can be in charge, like I would tell the DevRel, if I had some DevRel team, I said, hey, somebody's really strong on the content side, I would tell them like, hey, you're going to write the newsletter once a week. Once a week, you got to write this. This is your deliverable. And, I may own, like the company may ultimately own the list, right? But we're going to do it in a way that is sort of like you write it, you get it out. We're going to own the list, and kind of like a columnist almost, right? It's like you are the hired columnist and you have this role and that is your job. And I expect you to have the voice. And then when you leave, I may say, hey, I'm going to keep the list. And of course you will have built up your own reputation then. But I may, the next newsletter after you, if you were on this metaphor, you would have left, I would have sort of introduced the new columnist, right? And of course that would take over. Maybe some people would unsubscribe, or that new person would take on a different voice. But just the idea that you're committing all the time to like, like I've hired someone with a really good voice and a good writing acumen, and that's what I want them to do. And I just, that seems to be much better than the generic newsletter. It's like, who wants to write an entry this month, right? It just feels like that's sort of the kind of stuff that becomes, I don't want to say scam, but it's just low value.
Right. So another thing, and I think you're right. There's some the collection of metrics are pretty good. And another thing that's nice about it, I mean, we'll just give this full authority to make statements, is like, you should use your YouTube and Twitter followers. Like, don't blow them off. don't blow that off as like smarmy or whatever, right? Like it's easy to kind of like blow that stuff off. Now I forget if he mentions it, but like as I have delved a lot more into metric-y stuff, I figured out that I'm building up. I don't know if this is helpful, but some reputation as like doing metrics around here. But like, you know, when I look in YouTube nowadays, I treat like total number of views and like average duration watched as like the same value, right? And so that's, I mean, you know, you can, that's the one thing that when it comes to something like YouTube stuff that I'm more interested in than just total like whatever, even subscribers, right? Is like, if I post a 20-minute video, how many people watched 15 seconds versus all of it is, you know, nice. But anyways, the other thing, and I was trying to find like the quote where he says this, but when I read this, what I remember reading is basically there was this aside that I think more or less said, well, I don't know why it starts well, but it was saying one function that developer relations has, often why they're called advocates, is to advocate for the developers back to product. And I feel like there was an aside that basically said, yeah, that never really happens.
Yeah, that's what he said. You know, and I have to say
because the product people, they don't want to listen. Or I'm putting that in a snarky way, just because various reasons, right? Like it just doesn't work out that really becomes a thing. Which I feel like that's accurate.
Yeah, no, I feel
it is accurate.
I'm going to go even further. I'm just going to go even further and be like, and I think that part was great. I really felt, I mean, I was just really relating to this article when he wrote that. And it's like, yeah, like if that's what you want to be able to do, like you need to get a job in product management, right? This idea that like, that's the bottom line. Is like the idea that I wouldn't even say that it shouldn't even be an aspiration anymore of like DevRel. The fact that you think like, oh, we're going to do all this and we're going to bring it back. It's like, no, if that's what you want to do, go get a job in product management and like do that and then make that your focus in product management. And you'll probably learn a little bit why it's harder than you think, but absolutely do not go into DevRel thinking, oh, I'm going to be, you know, really driving the roadmap and doing all this stuff. It's like, it never works. It just never works.
Yeah. You're definitely not driving a roadmap. You're going to be like, hey, do you need some anecdotes?
Exactly.
Do you need someone to open bug reports?
Yeah. And I mean, especially the more people in your company, right? Like I think you would know. I mean, definitely Matt and Brandon as well, better than I would. But like, I feel like the larger the company, at some point, I don't know, maybe when they're probably even as 50 people in the company, that like just whatever it is a DevRel person is doing versus like the schedule of product. And by that, I mean product managers and developers deciding what goes in there is just unhelpfully all out of whack. Like essentially anything that a developer relations person hears, like more or less at any point that they're going to stop and interrupt product and suggest something to them, the product people are probably going to be like, cool story, bro. Right? like we got a bunch of shit going on over here. We don't have time to like just suddenly like take your input. Like out of the blue.
Yeah. I mean, hopefully that feedback is already known. It's called tech debt, right? You know, the product people have they've already got a roadmap and they're like, yeah, stuff's broken, but you know what? We kept on moving.
Yeah.
And you're like, but the customers are complaining about this and, you know, the users are saying this. And it's like, cool story, bro. But
so I like the edit you're more or less saying, Brandon, which is like, let's summarize this section by saying it doesn't exist, right? Like this whole notion. Like just like
this is the author. He writes it. He wrote it perfectly. I couldn't have said it. I was just sort of like nodding my head in massive agreement. Yeah, so it's like that's really good. But I do think the other one now, when you get beyond the content side, I think on the community, so kind of building communities is Matt, is probably your area you want to talk more about. But like I thought this was pretty good too about, you know, I like some of these metrics. They were pretty simple, but they felt good to me. It's sort of like how many people are joining your Slack or your Discord, right? That seemed to make a lot of sense. And then how many, you know, some type of commits or some types of contributions, that seemed really important too. So I thought those were pretty simple, but I also thought to myself, I don't know, he had a couple ones in there I thought were a little vague, was like how many super users, and it's like, well, what does that mean, right? But I do think at the end of the day, those feel right. Just how many people are kind of in Slack, for lack of a better thing, it does give you a really nice way to quantify, like, not only are there a lot of people in the Slack, but are there like lots of conversations happening? Because if that's going on, then yeah, you have a pretty good developer type following. So pretty simple, but I like those. I don't know, Matt, you've done this a lot more. Like those, hate those? What are your thoughts?
I mean, yeah, you have to start somewhere, and those seem like they're all battle tested, provably good starter positions. I mean, if you're going into this cold, yeah, start here. I mean, this is a great article for that. If and then of course, how your community works or doesn't work will, you'll reassess and adjust as you go.
Yeah. But, well, I think it's it may seem a little niche, but I think for the listeners out there who I assume are interested in enterprise infrastructure, platform software stuff, all these developer relations people are probably a big part of your life. So it's fun to stare into what they're doing. And the last thing I want to mention on that is it was also a good reminder about when people traveled and how nice events were. And how I almost feel like it's been so long that, like, I think us in the DevRel community might have forgotten about, like, we're starting to lose touch. It's kind of like when you don't eat something for a long time and you don't really remember what it tasted like or what to do. And I don't know, if we have to go another year for this, I think we're just going to be like, I don't know, conferences, events, do those really work? Like, we're not going to have the intuition for it.
All right, good. I like that. Good. It's a call to action on the conferences. So fantastic. All right, everyone should, after you finish listening to this podcast, go listen to our friends at Postlight. And where's their link? I'll find them. Poor Matt Ray. Matt Ray's like had to move 3 times. He's fighting a dog. You all right, Matt? He's not even back.
I don't know. It looks like he's getting like a piles attack or something.
It's like Matt's fighting off many.
No, I didn't think about it until now, where I instead of talking, I was thinking about, like, what the fuck's up with hackathons? Is that actually a thing? That always seemed like the most. I just
call them, like, I just call it like labs. Like, I don't know. I think labs at a conference or something is interesting. I don't know. A hackathon, I guess if you have a really big community and there's lots of stuff to build off of, like a Twilio, where you can kind of pull something together and like. That's kind of cool, but I don't know. I think a lot of other things don't. Like, I don't know. I guess the Kubernetes hackathon. I don't know.
I guess my bias is always like, there's always these people who are trying to hustle, like doing some sort of competition or something, and I always just think, like, I don't know about that. Where as opposed to, like, and you'll see the people who cleverly do this at DevOps days, where they'll have, like, the day before they'll host like a 2 or 3 hour workshop, which is also mentioned. But I think that is like an underutilized thing that people should do, is like make sure that you have some DevRel people who can just like do a workshop.
Yeah, I think workshop's definitely good. I didn't say, we kind of got off it, but at the end, I was just gonna say the last window, product focused developer advocacy is like, I don't know. That's another part I'd be like, yeah, don't do that. Like, that's bad. Like, that's like, just go into product management. Like, those were the two. That was my other critique, which is just leave. Don't, like, if this is what you care about, then get into product management. Don't, that's not developer advocacy. Nothing there. Like, this whole like launch day users and prioritize user issues from DevRel. I'm like, no. No one wants that. No one cares about that from you.
Just get into product management.
Just do it. Just if you care about that, product management. So.
Yeah. All right. Sounds good.
Matt, you back? You ready? You okay? Tough episode for you, man.
The dog is. I chased him around the living room here for a while, and he is now asleep under my chair because he's tired from the fight. But I did not lock him up, so he'll probably get up and start mauling me again. Stupid dog.
All right.
It's been flooding and raining here, so he's pretty stir crazy, extra crazy.
Oh man, I love dogs, but I don't want one. You know what I'm saying? I just.
Oh my gosh.
I'm about ready to trade mine in.
Yeah.
All right.
Anyhow, okay.
Anytime you're ready.
What do we got here? We got plenty of time. Okay.
A lot of time left. Whatever you do. You got the ads done now. Got them done. So you're good to go. Take us wherever you want to.
All right. Sorry. All right. I haven't mentioned it recently, but our old buddies at the Cube. I think they, somewhere in Twitter, they mentioned this. Now, I didn't go to look at the primary sources, the video, because it's only 44 seconds, so I think you can summarize 44 seconds in a tweet. But it looks like Scott McNealy, who, for the people who are not in their 40s who are listening, Scott McNealy was one of the founders. He was a founder, right? And CEO, and the CEO of Sun Microsystems. Now, Sun Microsystems, for those people who are not in their 30s, that was a company that made really cool hardware, all sorts of, hardware that was very popular in the late 2000s that ran on something called Solaris, which is a Unix variant. And they came up with Java, which is a programming language. You might have heard of.
All these things are still around.
I know.
You can't escape the enterprise.
And they were what I would call kind of a big deal for a while there. And I think I didn't see Scott saying it. Have I ever told the story about when I had like the biggest analyst dumb shit thing to say when Scott popped into a room at some point that I was in?
No, tell us.
I should go over that at some point. Remind me, and I'll maybe that'd be a good some after show
how about
content.
Now?
Well, anyways, like it looked like he said we should have just called what we were doing cloud, which I don't think he's wrong. I think that would have been, I don't know if that would have made them successful, but I think it would have been a valid application of the word because they did have, I think you were there at the time, right, Brandon?
I was, yeah, absolutely.
But they did have something called network.com, which was, it took me a little while to figure this out, but I think it was basically an HPC, which is, what does the H in HPC stand for? High performance computing. It was basically like before the idea of Hadoop was around and bigger cloud things. It was like if you needed to do a bunch of parallel processing that was very fast, high performance, then you would spend a lot of money on HPC stuff. I remember the University of Texas was always like, check out our HPC cluster.
Check out our Ranger.
We named it after some cowboy shit, and which is as you do. So I think network.com was a big batch job HPC thing. And I remember them talking about how it would be awesome to run it in Siberia because you would have to spend less money cooling it. Which was some fun talk. But I like this. I like this idea. Let's explore this idea.
Running in Siberia? Now's not a good time for that.
No. If Sun had jumped on this like if Sun had jumped on this cloud thing, now this would be a second vocabulary a second major thing that they should have done. The first one is they should have adopted Linux in like 2000, which I think was also said. But this would be the second thing is like we should have like when EC2 came out, was that 2005? I think Sun was still around then. Like we should have like there's something we should have done there. We needed the 6-page memo and Ben Black and those people
right. But
to like
I think
write
a lot of it,
thing.
though, a lot of it's I was there during this period, so a lot of it is a little bit revisionist history. So there was this thing called like the Sun Grid or the Sun Grid engine, right? Which was, kind of it really was, I guess, a precursor to like infrastructure as a service. I mean, it wasn't exactly the same, but I mean, it was something you could run. At one point, you could you put up a generalized. It was basically just run your own workloads in the Grid engine. So it was there, and then. The other thing that Sun did, and like everybody had done, before containers, right? Solaris had zones, and then I think BSD had jails, and so like a lot of the pieces were sitting right there. But I do think the revisionist history just is sort of like they did launch it, right? And you could have called it cloud, but like Grid was pretty. Like, Grid was a pretty good euphemism.
Grid was what people were thinking at the time.
Yeah,
right?
And it's like, and that's what people were thinking about, and people did know about it. It was like, okay, that's interesting, and so it wasn't like. I guess let me just summarize it this way. It's like having a good idea at the wrong time is still being wrong.
Right.
It doesn't help you any better. Right?
Well, you're adding even more, Brandon, which is like they did do it. Right. And I kind of forgotten about that. And we worked at a place that had a grid computing, right, Matt Ray? I think for like, was that 3 months or something? I forget how long that lasted.
It was a little bit longer than that, but that was like 1999. Right. Or 2000, 2001. But the thing was, like, weren't Sun was the one going around talking about the network is the computer, right?
Yeah.
And
that was
so they were already on
2000.
Yeah, they were already on that track. It's just the world wasn't ready for that, right?
Yeah.
And it took, it took a bookseller to convince people that we should put all our stuff, on somebody else's data center.
Yeah. It was. I mean, that is the common thing people say about Sun is it was just too soon.
But I think, part of it is just like how it's like playing any other game, like almost like a video game. It's like the most important of video game is just to like stay alive, just like, just keep playing. And I think in the case of Sun, like if really it's the hardware side of it, the Spark, right, got attacked and really lost money so fast that was the real cash cow. So, but if you were to say, maybe if Spark had lasted, say, 5 more years, you just given the company 5 more years of runway, that Sun probably could have had a well-positioned thing. Like they are the kind of company that could have said, okay, we kind of messed up on Linux, but we're going to adopt that. And we already have this kind of network mantra, and we already have this grid utility, and we could probably, quickly pivot to infrastructure as a service. But, being there was just like, hey, the company was losing so much money. And this was famously when they did like the red shift, blue shift, and should everything be open source? Because it was just, trying to find a strategy that would make money. And ultimately there was no, I mean, and I, this is the kind of thing people don't like to hear, but it's like when your cash cow gets attacked and is under major, competition from everywhere, in this case, Spark, there's very little you're going to do. Like if someone overnight were to like invent a better advertising platform than search-based ads, that would be very hard for Google to like quickly come up with another solution, right? And I don't think that's going to happen, but that was sort of like at Sun at the time, I think people felt like, oh, the Spark's great, it's just going to continue on. But clearly, that was not the case.
Yeah, no, I think that's absolutely it, right? Like their cash flow is just fucked, and then like I was thinking about this earlier today. I mean, I don't know if it's cynical or real, but like at some point when you're a public company, this is back to your story, not yours, but the story thing you referenced, Brandon. Like all you're really managing is making sure that quarter to quarter, the financial analysts are happy with their model, right? And you're basically trying to manage like the model that financial analysts are building, so it matches what results that you get. And whether that's like, building up the expectations and signaling correctly and kind of explaining your business and having them buy into the story of how it is, like, because that seems to be like over and over again, right? Like you'll have these companies that report like, growth in the earnings, and then the analysts are like, oh, it didn't meet expectations, and then everything tanks, right? And so that just means that like, I don't know, the model of the predictions didn't really match what actually happened. So you've really got to spend a lot of time like managing what those expectations are.
And to your point, like we talked about, I think a couple episodes again, my favorite definition of valuation is just, the current number plus a story. And the problem being at Sun at the time was the story, there wasn't a good story and it kept changing, right? It would be like, we're going to be a software company. We're going to be open source. No, we're not going to be open source. We're going to do Solaris x86. So this is to your point, like once that financial analysts hear that enough, your valuation comes way, way down. And in this case, right, they ultimately got bought by Oracle for, I think it was only $5 billion after almost being, at one point, Sun, this is going back to your history. It's like Cisco and Sun, people forget about it, but like those were like, Cisco was almost the first $1 trillion company, like way back in the 2000s. And Sun was, I don't know, hundreds of billions again in the 2000s. And so if you think about how far it came down before it was sold, it's like, in the end, it just, ran out of runway. But I always say, like, when I look back on that, is like, so many of those people though, just like literally just drove like down the street in California, like went to Google, and so much of that technology, I think, did become like Borg and all of that stuff. A lot of those people and all of all that Java stuff and everything, really went to some large companies today. So in some ways, it's sort of like the alumni lived on, and a lot of the ideas lived on in these very successful companies today.
Oh, Sun, always. Like I haven't thought about them in a while. Now it's going to be hard to get them out of my mind again. I find it fascinating. But I think the ultimate, if I was to give a little spoiler for my recommendation, I think if Chuck Klosterman was writing my book Sun WTF, the end would be like, he'd say it in his high pitched voice. And the ultimate symbol of what happened is that now the company that is housed in the former Sun campus is Facebook. But it's just sort of the wrap up of. Yeah,
there is some trivia, I guess, that that campus. I guess they reversed the sign or repainted the sign, but they kept the Sun logo on the back of the Facebook sign. So they as a method of like reminding themselves that you're never
strong companies. The sun set on you.
Yeah, big companies can often falter, right?
Wow,
so,
I hope that's beyond
little trivia.
I hope that's on the right side of security, because next time I'm over there, I should go take a picture with that. That would be awesome.
Yeah, you just gotta go. It's just on the back though. You gotta that's.
Oh, right. That's what we need our listeners to do, is send us in some selfies of you.
Yeah, in front of that. I'm sure. Yeah, somebody's done it.
Never mind the Facebook thing. I want to see the old Sun one.
Is the Sun campus in Austin? Is that Apple's headquarters?
It's Oracle's.
Oracle.
It's owned by Oracle, but it's across Apple's across the street.
Apple's across the street.
Yeah. And that, I haven't been to that part of town in forever. I remember that being one of those parts of Austin where it was like, I was born here and lived here all my life, and I've never seen this part of town. I don't know what the fuck this is.
Yeah, no, it's definitely too funny.
Like a strange area. Well, do we have any bureaucracy this week, Brandon?
Oh, yes, we do. We've got several things. First of all, as always, if you want stickers, just send your postal address to stickers@softwaredefinedtalk.com, and I will be happy to send you a sticker anywhere in the world, like I did for Nicholas this weekend. He is in Charlotte, so appreciate him writing in. Also, we got a couple other things just kind of on topics. One, turns out, Cote, someone else in the world also likes trackballs other than Matt Ray. It's Craig. Craig says he likes the mouse trackballs that you use too, Matt Ray. So there's a market of 2. The TAM is now 2. That's it's rare that you can count the exact TAM of everything, but there you have it.
Hey, clearly, there's a real market. I mean, they're still making them 15 years later. Yeah,
I think in strategy they call that the 2 TAM. And so
that's right. There, it's a TAM of 2.
Maybe a Tim Tam.
Oh, hey, that's good.
Also, I wanted to promote the Cloudcast, of course, done by our good friend Brian Gracely. So he had one of his Sunday conversation episodes called the Kubernetes Developer Experience, where he mentioned software-defined talk a couple of times, which is great. But Cote kind of answers some of your questions, kind of like, why did Kubernetes succeed if it doesn't really have a good developer experience? So he had written some stuff in Slack, but I think his episode, so it's even better. If you want to hear his whole response, which I think is excellent, he has lots of good ideas. One thing that I left with was his idea about really maybe you don't need different developer experiences for each kind of language, each thing you're doing, right? So that's sort of like maybe Kubernetes. So he kind of teases that out. So if you want to hear someone answer that question or kind of like give you, and Brian has a lot of experience with Kubernetes, you just listen to the whole episode. It's really, really good.
Yeah,
it's been fun to hear.
So I have that one queued up. I haven't listened to it, but I have to say I've really been enjoying his Sunday monologues. I think they're great. It's good stuff.
Shocking. Cote loves a monologue.
That's right. and then finally, we've been talking about it, and I mentioned it last time, but I want to mention it again. If you'd like to be eventually invited to a software-defined talk meetup, we're going to do some meetups, probably virtually and maybe in person, depending on how the things are going in the world. Just sign up. If you go right now to the show notes, just go to there's a link right there. So if you just put in your information, I'll add you to the list. And as we do things either virtually or we do things kind of in specific geographic areas, we'll send it out, and maybe we can all see each other in person, or if not in person, maybe we can at least get together online.
You know what we should do, Brandon, is we should do one of my Nutella tastings. I don't know, like it might have to be like out. It might have to be like buy your own stuff situation, but like we'll go through and instead of a sommelier, you'll have me going through like a journey of trying Nutella on things. And, that might be fun to go through.
Well, what's an anti-sommelier? I'll be like, now you're going to ruin this with Nutella. Now you're going to ruin that with Nutella.
I like it. That sounds like our first ever kid-friendly event too. I feels like you bring the kids. Sure, we'll put Nutella on anything. Why not?
I don't know if I'll be able to not, as they say in the Fantastic Mr. Fox, cuss. Like that might be hard.
That's true. Maybe we'll just give a parental warning. It'll be a PG-13.
Whatever. I'm a professional. I can moderate myself well if it's marked for kids.
Especially in front of children.
Yeah. That's
You're not
true.
Australian.
Although I had to explain to one of my kids this morning that although the phrase "turd knocker" is delightful, make sure not to say that at school. And the child that I was talking about this with, she was like, I guess I've given it away. She was like, oh yes, I know. And I said, because sometimes people don't like that. And then I said, as we were biking together, and what would you call those people? And I pointed at her, and right on cue, she was like, turd knocker. So
you've taught them so well.
Yes,
you taught them so well.
My father would
kids,
be proud.
Yes, my kids always like, what was that? He said, "Son of a beagle."
Yeah. One of the better phrases. Well, speaking of remembering conferences, there are several of them coming up. One of the ones that I'm most excited about is one of my teammates, Layla, and a whole bunch of other people have worked on putting together the .NET Beyond Conference, which is March 30th and 31st. It's all totally free, and I think it's being broadcast on Twitch. I'm going to be emceeing some parts of it. emceeing is the best job because you're just like, hey, we got someone else coming up. See you later. With a few more words. But yeah, it'll be a great conference. So if you go to softwaredefinedtalk.com/347, you can check out the .NET Beyond conference. Also, in May, it was rescheduled to the 23rd to 26th. There's that conference. We've got all sorts of discounts depending on what you want. If you go to softwaredefinedtalk.com/347, there's also a lot of CFPs open. There's one for that conference in Wisconsin. If you're into, it's in July, so there won't be any snow, but I guess they have cheese. I don't really know the deal with that. And also Birmingham, DevOps Days Birmingham, Alabama, not England. I think they have theirs open. Now, I think the CFP for DevOps Days Austin is closed. They asked me to come talk since I spoke at the original one and other ones. So I should be there unless, I don't know, some disease or virus happens or something. But that will be May 4th to 5th. It'll be great to be back in Austin and see all that group. I haven't seen them in a while. And there's a CFP for DevOps Days Chicago. There's a Splunk conference coming up in June. But the conference you should really pay attention to is Spring One Platform is going to be in San Francisco, December 6th to 8th. My boss was just there checking out the Moscone West, see how things are going. Boy, it'll be fun to be there and see what they have going on there in the old San Francisco. I haven't been there forever. So if you go to softwaredefinedtalk.com/347, you can check all of those out. You should register for them, submit papers, or whatever you like. Now with that, Matt Ray, what do you have to recommend this episode?
My recommendation this week is an audiobook. If you read or saw the movie The Martian, the author Andy Weir has I don't think it's new, but it's new to me. So a book called Hail Mary. Brandon, have you already recommended this one?
I didn't want to step on you. I have read it. I didn't like it as much as the other people.
Well, I haven't finished.
I was not as a big a fan. So
I could see
but I did read it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think the audiobook would probably be better than the book.
No, I did the whole audiobook. I guess just to completely destroy their recommendation. Be like, listen to the whole thing. I just thought it was okay. I didn't think
I haven't finished it yet. I've got about an hour and a half left. So
I will say I think it starts strong and then toward the end it sort of tailored out a little bit.
Yeah. Well, I think if you like The Martian, you probably like this.
That's probably true. That is.
Yeah. So anyway, I'm enjoying it. I think the voice actor's pretty sharp, and it's nice to take a break from the constant tech podcasts and the like, and listen to an audiobook now and then. So it's 19 hours, but whatever. I'm enjoying it. Don't listen to Brandon.
No, I'm just gonna say I want to be like I'm neutral on it. I think I like the premise. It started quick. There was some interesting stuff, but then kind of like to your point, kind of like The Martian. It's like I get it. He's on Mars. He has to do a lot. I just felt like there's a point where it's like, I get it. I get it.
I get it. Yes.
He's smart. He comes up with innovative solutions, and it's just like, it just wears me out. But some people love it. If that's what you liked, you gave the best. If you like The Martian, you're going to love this book.
I did tell my wife, I was like, is this guy a one-trick pony?
Yeah, I was a little bit. Well, it's kind of when you're watching that movie. Hopefully, we're not ruining The Martian, but it's like I don't know. Matt Damon, not that important to me. Like it's okay. Maybe we just he didn't. Maybe. He's not going to make it home. Maybe he didn't make it home.
Maybe more gravestones on Mars.
So anyway.
All right. Well, let me ask a little interstitial here. I tried to read that Neil Stevenson book, Anathema, or whatever it's called.
Yeah, I haven't read that one yet.
Yeah, and I was just reading, and I was like, fuck this shit. And so, I want to know, is this one of those books?
I've heard people have that reaction to that book.
Is this one of those books that I need to put on that pile for, when I am in this mythical retirement, and I'm just like, well, I need to read through 2 meters worth of books a year because what the fuck else am I doing? Do I need to put it on that pile because I need to invest the time in it and it'll be fun? But this is the feedback that I need to know because I feel like it would be a great sort of premiere TV miniseries.
Yeah.
Like I have that sense, but like I just like I don't know. I don't want to like there's something off with it, and like I don't know what's up with that book. It's annoying. Now, Brandon, what do you have to recommend this week?
Well, so many things. I know. I feel like we're just going to the anti-recommendation. I don't know. Just some hot takes here. One, Neil Stephenson. I'm not sure I think too much hype. I'm not.
Oh,
I don't.
No.
I'm just. Again, I know people aren't going to like that. Like, so yes, I would put that on the bookshelf, right? I would just be like, yeah, all right. Stephen King also. I don't quite see why everyone is just people love it so much. I'm like, every time I'm in it, I'm like,
I think
it's so great
both those
here.
authors, when they hit really hard.
Yeah. I think you're right. And I like, I'm going to use your thing, Brandon. It's that, is this a book that I need to put on the bookshelf for later or just get the fuck rid of? Right. Like, and I think you're exactly right. I think Stephen King books, except, there's a few of them that I've read where I'm just like, I read them in like 2 days. Like they're so good. But
exactly.
I think maybe this Ananthemum or whatever book and a lot of Stephen King books, they go on the bookshelf. Right?
Yeah. And maybe you just gave the right thing. Like if you read the Stephen King book and you find yourself not just like kind of consuming it in just a couple days, it's probably one you can just put down. You're like, this isn't so good. So
I mean, some of them are like, some of them are Pet Sematary and some of them are The Shining. Right. And that's the way I feel about Stevenson. Is like, sometimes his books are like, I can't stop reading them, and then others I'm like, well, at least it's over.
It's true. I guess part of this is revealing that like once I kind of start, especially an audiobook, I just feel compelled to finish it. So sometimes there's like some bitterness in me, and like I know I didn't like this book, and you made me finish it, Neil Stephenson. It's your fault. But I could have. I know I could have stopped, but I can't stop. I really.
But some
can't
of his
stop,
books I just love. That's the problem.
I agree. Yeah. Like there is. It's like you just need to go into it. Like go into it with that moment. Like if you're not feeling the love, put it away. I can't do it. So I'm sort of I can't do it either. I don't have the gene. I can't just like let it go. So maybe we should have an episode one day of like the absolute worst books we've ever completed. So we'll just leave that out there. I've got a few.
Good.
I've
got a few that I'm ready. I'm ready. I'm locked and loaded on that hot take. All right. Anyway, let me just give you my quick recommendation. So I'm trying out this new email client. I guess I'm a fan of like when an Apple developer leaves Apple and decides to build a specific app. I'm sort of a sucker for those types of apps. I always like it. So it's called, I think it's called MimeStream. It's basically a native Mac OS email client just for Gmail. It does just Gmail, but it has all the nice, if you will, Mac OS goodness, and it's built by a former Apple developer. And so it's just in beta. So if you're interested in trying something out, but I think my early recommendation is I like it. I just like this very minimal Gmail client on my desktop. So if you want to give it a shot, try it out.
All right. Well, my recommendation, I did a little spoiler there, is this book. I have never encountered Chuck Klosterman. I don't know if I'm saying his name right. Now he wrote for that like Artie sports thing. So do y'all know Grantland or something? Was that a thing?
Famously Grantland, and he's on the Bill Simmons podcast quite a bit, talking about pop culture and sports and basketball. So
I'd never heard of him, but I heard him in the Tyler Cohen podcast. They interviewed him, which is a great episode. It's a fun one, and so what Chuck here does that many people don't take advantage of when they're on any conversation with someone, but especially that podcast, is they turn the thing around and they ask Tyler a question that he just goes off on, right? That's a rare treat when a guest like asks him a question that he gives a fun answer on. So anyways, so he obviously, as with most podcasts like that, he's on a book tour. That's why he's on the podcast. And so I read the book he was talking about called The 90s, which is spelled out instead of being the numbers. Now, I feel like, and you two may be in the same boat, but I feel like this book was written for me, right? It's basically written for Gen X people who lived in the 90s, and it's like fantastic. It's like great. It's a very good book. I read and listened to it. I mean, it's a good, there's a lot of stuff I forgot about that I think it's not only, I mean, it's definitely not a history, but it's almost done in the style of, how do you say that guy's name? Halberstam, the guy who wrote like the 50s and the 60s and the 70s. And it kind of has that same format. And it is more or less one of those books built out of like, getting what's that thing that has a gun that spits out like gunk that you put between tiles, like whatever that's called. But like, it's basically a bunch of articles that are just like spackled together with that thing. It's like a big, it's got a caulk. That's right. They got different names for that in other countries, but like it's just a big caulking gun of a bunch of articles. But still, it's fine. It's good reading. So you should I think it's worth checking out. And I started listening to some of his other books, and the style that he has in his 2003 book about like Cocoa Puffs and something else is like a very, given the time that it was written so long ago, it's odd to say it, but it's a total Matt Levine ripoff, the way that he writes, so to speak, right?
Written before Matt Levine's popularity.
It has lots of like and I don't know and whatever's like. It's like Matt Levine's style and the style in this book identical, except they write about very different things. So it's if you like Matt Levine, I think you'll like this guy. So with that, as always, this has been Software Defined Talk. This is episode number 347. We're almost up to a full year of podcasts. Soon we'll be there, being 365 days, as you may recall. And you can go to softwaredefinedtalk.com/347. We've got a fantastic Slack community that discusses all sorts of things during the week that we talk about and don't talk about. And I don't know. With that, we'll see everyone next time. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
All right, good episode. Coach, a quick question for you. Is Tyler Cohen like the most like, I feel like his brain, the way that he asks questions, like he's like the most robotic speaker, not robotic, like in a good way, like not like boring, but like he seems to have like perfectly articulated questions, perfectly formulated at any given moment. And there's like not even a stutter in the way that he'll just transition from like a scientific theory to like 19th century French literature, right? And you're like, do you notice that, or is that just me?
No, that's it.
I don't know how that. I don't know how he does that.
He had one of the rare things where like someone asked him about his production method, and other than just being able to do it, I think he also just like does a lot of prep work, right? And so yeah, that's I'm always wondering.
I have to go. I haven't heard this episode yet, so I have to go check it because Klosterman is like he seems to be like all over the place, like just like kind of talking. So I'm interested. Maybe I'll listen to it here. It's like it feels like a contrasting style. Like I don't know, like what do you get when you get Klosterman?
It's
those two together.
It's great, and part of the charm is like if you listen to like Tyler Cohen enough, like you kind of like. At least what you hear, you understand this personality, whether it's actually him or whatever. I don't know why I'm disclaiming, but like you can tell by the way the conversation is going that like Tyler is like loving it. Like you can tell he's just like, this is the fucking shit, right? Like he's all into it, which he doesn't always happen with his guests, right? But the two of them like fit together extremely well.
Like, well, I don't know. Like the one that's funny is like I think it must be really intimidating. I would be intimidated if I went on that show, right? Because I think his questions are just so like quick and like thoughtful, but like it doesn't seem like people do enough of like asking him back, like kind of like trying to engage him back on the subject, because like he'll sort of like it's almost like he has like some kind of rule of engagement. Like if you don't engage him back, he's just going to come at you with like science, literature, popular events, right? But if you come back with him, because a couple of people do it, and it's like, wow, that's when it gets interesting. You're like, whoa, this is
you can tell what he wants. Like I don't know if he's ever written. Well, he has written about this, but I don't know what his take on himself is. But he seems to always be thinking like I might be slightly autistic. like Tyler Cohen. I mean, he wrote a book about this, if I remember. And so I think like that's what he's always going for is like that conversation. And so, yeah, I mean, like you said, when it happens, the show like takes on this whole other dimension of fun that,
Yeah, they should almost tag his episodes like engagement. Like, oh, this person like hit back. This is gonna be a good one. So
no, and Klosterman is he's all over that, right? Like he's just like, let's have a conversation.
All right, man. I apologize. I didn't really want to say anything about Hail Mary, but you drew me in there. I'm just like, I didn't mean. I didn't.
Well, that's the thing. It's like
I didn't love
I
it.
like it,
So.
and then I'm kind of like, this is getting kind of boring. Oh, that's pretty cool. Oh, I like this too.
Well, it's cool. I guess hopefully no one's listening. We'll put this a little post show. So if you care about this, stop listening, because I do think the idea.
I haven't finished it, so don't spoil.
Oh, okay. Then I'm gonna pause. All right. Well, all right. You and I will talk about it next time.
I got like an hour and a half left.
All right. We'll leave it there then. right, I got to run. Thanks to all the streamers for hanging in here this week. We'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.